Hi friends, it's Amy. Welcome to my bookish life. Today I want to go through the 17 books that I read during the month of September. So let's get to it. All right, as I said, 17 books during the month of September. Not too bad considering school was starting. Lots of craziness, lots of craziness. It was good. It was a really good month. I loved a lot of the books that I read. My star ratings went from a 3-star to a 5-star. I definitely can't complain there. I gave an average rating of 4.29 stars. I read 7 books for an adult audience, 1 book for YA audience, and 9 middle grades. 9 were physical copies, 7 were digital copies, and 9 were audiobooks. Some shuffled combination there. Of 16 were fiction, 1 was nonfiction. I read a total of 4,829 pages. 1 was a backlist Kindle book, and 5 were ARCs. 0 book of the months. Come on, catch-up-a-thon. And an average of 284 pages per book with 160 pages per day on average. Really just a great month. So let's start with my amazing TBR. I did actually do 2 rounds of the amazing TBR, and only one of them was the goal to complete one of the rounds. So I did actually fully complete my first round of the amazing TBR. My first move, I needed to read a sci-fi or fantasy middle grade, and I read Amari and the Great Game. The second move, I needed to read a Kindle Unlimited book, and I read If We Were Villains. And the third move, I needed a book that was on some bestseller list. And I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, and that is on lots of bestseller lists. And then the fourth one, I needed a middle grade book that doesn't begin with the or an, and I read Otter by Katherine Applegate. The second round, I really only completed one of the second round, and that was the library book. I read The Gown that I got from the library, and that was it. Also, I succeeded with my Tic Tac TBR from Ruby Red. I also participated in Series September. I did have to duplicate a little bit. However, I filled out all the spots on the board, which I was pretty excited for. Let's Get It Started, which was to start a series. I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, first in the series. I also counted A Good Girl's Guide to Murder for Three's a Crowd, which is part of a trilogy. For Double It Up, I read The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis and The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. For Blast from the Past, I read the second book in the Mary Wrath mysteries that I had missed at some point, and that was Mint Chip Murder by Leslie Langtry. Mint Cookie Murder. Okay. Mint Cookie Murder by Leslie Langtry. For Talk of the Town, kind of all over the place, I read Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. For That's a Wrap, which was to finish the series, I just needed to read 2 books in order to be caught up with the Whatever After series by Sarah Mlynowski. So I read Good as Gold and Just Dance, and I love these little fairy tale retellings. They're so good, and I just listen to them in audio, and I love them. They're so fun. I just do. For Out of the Box, which is out of my comfort zone, I ended up putting Kittens, Cupcakes, and Complications by Amity Allen, because the more I was reading it, the more I realized that it's really not in my comfort zone to read a paranormal cozy mystery. And so there you go. For You Own It, Now Start It, I read Finlay, Donovan, Knocks 'Em Dead by El Cosimano. And for Now You Can Watch It, I read Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder with my friend Rainy from Rainy Day Reads. And then we watched the premiere movie together. So that was super fun. It was a lot of fun. So Series September was really great. And now that I think about it, I think I might have missed the point of you own it, now start it. Because in my head, it was you own it, now read it. And I was thinking I've had the second Finlay Donovan for forever. So maybe I didn't smash it as much as I thought I did, but I'm just going to say I did. It's fine. So it's almost been 10 minutes, so let's look at all the books that I read. The first book that I finished in September was The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis. And this is my least favorite of the Narnia books that I've read so far. I still have The Last Battle left. I don't see not liking it as much as I didn't like The Horse and His Boy. Not that I hated it. I didn't. I did still like it. I did still enjoy it. I just didn't love it. And I didn't enjoy, like, it just didn't feel as whimsical. It didn't feel as whimsical. I read it as a part of the Narnia Readalong that A-Star Reads and An Autistic Reader are putting out, are doing, and I enjoyed it. It seemed kind of out there. Like, it didn't feel like it belonged as part of the series. This is about Shasta, who runs away from his homeland with his horse Bree and discovers a plot to destroy Narnia by this other race of people. And it addresses the difference between talking versus non-talking animals and how they're different. It's just not my favorite. It's a little bit forgettable. It's been a month and I don't really remember a whole lot about it, besides the fact that it felt a little icky sometimes. I can't explain the icky. It was just there. The next book that I finished was The Girl in White by Lindsay Currie, and I loved this one. It's wonderful, spooky, middle grade. I had it as an ARC from NetGalley, and in this one we have Mallory, whose parents own a restaurant in Eastport that kind of capitalizes on the fact that there's a lot of ghost stories in the town, as many of the businesses do, and Mallory begins to have nightmares about Sweet Molly, who is the most famous ghost in this town, and she begins to wonder if there's kind of more to the story. It was so creepy, very propulsive. I just really, really enjoyed my time with this book so much. Highly recommend, especially if you have liked Lindsay Currie's other books, if you like spooky middle grade, this is going to be one you should try. The third book that I read in the month of September was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And this one is a dark academia that takes place at this elite school of the arts, and it centers around the theater program, the fourth year theater students. There's 7 of them. Their program starts with a bunch of people at the beginning, and they get weeded until they're left with the elite. And it had kind of a breakfast club feel, because each of them had their own like trademarks, as you see in the characters of the Breakfast Club. But this one this year ends in murder, and one of them is in jail. And we start 10 years after their senior year, when one of them is being released from jail for murder. And it was a lot of fun. It was a fun read. I really liked it. I loved all of the nods to Shakespeare. I loved just how kind of creepy and toxic this academic arena was. It was really kind of cool. One thing I didn't like about it is that it just really seemed random. Every once in a while, the author would break into like a script format with like 4 or 5 pieces of dialogue, which just seemed so random that it almost was like, I don't really feel like writing a dialogue, so I'm just going to go into a script format for this for a second. And it just was weird and a little bit jarring, and I didn't like that. But I didn't like this. But I did like the story. I really liked just the propulsiveness of it. And the propulsiveness of it, I gave it 4 stars. Word of warning, if you don't like an ambiguous ending, don't pick this one up, because very ambiguous. Very ambiguous. Definitely could have used a little bit more. That one, this If We Were Villains, was the book club pick for my in real life book club at my library. Yeah, it was a fun discussion. The next book that I finished is Better Believe It by Fern Ronay. This book, it's like a contemporary romance, literary fiction, almost paranormal magical realism. It's very genre bending. But there are parts of this book that I can't stop thinking about. So let me explain. This book was sent to me by its author, Fern Ronay, just asking for reviews. Like, will you read my book and review it? So yeah, I will do that. Sounds good. So Jada is the main character here, and she's in an unhappy marriage, like they've just kind of stopped communicating with each other kind of situation. And she puts out on Instagram that she is super happy. You know, she's got like the mask of happiness, you know, but she's unhappy and she doesn't really know what to do with that. Every night when she dreams, she is visited by relatives that have passed away. Her grandparents, for example, who she never knew in real life, but they're there talking about how they watch over her. Her cousin, Gina, who died tragically in a car accident, is there and helping guide her through life. It's kind of a crazy concept, but it really looks at how toxic relationships can just keep festering and how heavy friendships can weigh on your mind and how communication breakdowns just don't work. It was such a crazy concept, but it worked so effectively at making me think and just there were moments that I was like, do I want to finish this book? And I did, but I didn't know why. And then I got to the end and I was so glad that I finished it. And I was so, it really is a book that you want to read with other people. You almost want to discuss the decisions and you want to discuss the advice that she's getting from her actual in real life friends and her dead cousin Gina, and the concept of the people in our lives that we loved always looking after us, or that loved us are always looking after us and always there and guiding us and with us. And it really was quite beautiful as a whole. The road to get there was a little rocky sometimes, but man, I would definitely recommend it. It was good. It was really good. It actually is, I think it might be a second in a series. They're kind of it's a series of standalones. I don't think that you necessarily need to read the books in order, but it kind of has the same concept with the dreams. She doesn't actually remember the dreams after she has them. She wakes up not remembering what her dream's about, and then she has this feeling like she's being pushed to do something and she doesn't know why. But it's because somebody that's looking out for her has told her in a dream to do this. It's so crazy. Like it's a crazy concept, but it totally worked. I really liked it. That's all I'm going to say. All right, the next work that I finished was Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. This is a sequel to Amari and the Night Brothers. I am so proud of myself Number one, because I picked up this book and immediately started reading it. It is not a book that I purchased and will sit on my TBR shelf because I read it. Also, I really liked it. In this book, it kind of felt a little bit like a lot of the ground that was gained in the first book, in Amari and the Night Brothers, was just kind of lost. But how the supernatural community feels about magicians like Amari. And it's explained because there's a time freeze, random time freeze, where the world just freezes, and all of the magicians are able to walk around and aren't frozen. And so the fear of magicians starts basically all over again. Amari spends a great deal of this book, again, trying to help with the situation. There's this magician society that she's trying to stay away from, but not being a part of it could cause other catastrophic things to happen. She's just put in these situations that are very harrowing and also very exciting. And I really loved the adventure that the book took me on. I really wanted more of a focus to go on the great game that is in the title. However, I loved the characters and the character development that we saw, how Amari's relationships with others were built within the story, within the book. I loved being in this world again, and I just absolutely love the world that B.B. Alston has created. I love the parallels between the real world and the supernatural world. I love how they intertwine within the story. It just really is amazingly creative, and I just can't get enough of this series. It's so good. The next book that I read was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This was a book that I definitely thought was going to get 5 stars, and it definitely did. This book, holy cow, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading it. I absolutely could not get enough of this book. Pippa is such an amazing character. She's so strong and she's strong and she's flawed. Everything that she does is not perfect, but she does it with this good, caring heart, and it's so much fun. It was so much fun to read this book. The whole concept was great. There was a trope in here that I do not like. I probably would have thought twice before reading it had I known it was in there. And honestly, I am so glad I didn't know it was in there, because I gave this book 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely will continue with the series. And I gotta give the pass on the bad trope that I don't like. So the next book that I read was The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This is the prequel to the Narnia series as a whole. It is the 6th in publication order. It is marked as the first book in the series by many publishers. Don't really understand why, because prequels are prequels, and it was written as a prequel. Whatever. I kind of see it though. I see why some people would prefer to read this one first. I do. I also see why it belongs as the 6th book in the series. I really did, though, enjoy this story. Just being able to see the creation of Narnia and how Aslan was, how Aslan made decisions in creating it. And it was just really cool to see this world become what it is. And there are times as I was reading it where I was like, if I read this before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I kind of feel like it would ruin it. And then there were times when I was reading it and I was like, if I had read this before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, this might have made more sense. So again, I don't know what's correct, but I really enjoyed this one. Definitely the whimsicalness that I was missing in The Horse and His Boy was absolutely back. I loved it. I loved Diggory is the main character here, and Diggory grows up to be a very instrumental character in one of the stories. He has a friend, Polly, and they're just a great pair. I loved it. I loved it. It's so good. The next book that I finished was Mint Cookie Murder by Leslie Langtry. This is the second book in the Mary Wrath series. And if you have been on my channel for a while, you may know that the Mary Wrath mystery series is one of my favorite cozy mystery series. And you might be a little confused by the fact that I just said it was the second book in the series. What happened is I got the first book as an ARC. Somehow I missed the second, third, fourth, and sixth books. And then I picked up again at the sixth book. And I've read every book since then. So I think I missed one more in there too. Anyway, there's about 5 books that I haven't read in the Mary Wrath series, even though I've read all of the latest books. So I thought that it would be very beneficial to go back and read the books that I missed. And that worked out perfectly because it was a prompt in Series September. So thank you very much, Krista and Sarah at Books and Jams and Sarah's Nightstand for making that prompt for me. Because now I want to really focus on actually going back and doing that. So in this one, it was so interesting because there are so many more characters in this series than we find in this book. And it's a little jarring to not have those characters there. There's so much more growth and development in the girls in Mary's troop that you don't see in the second book. However, I loved it. It still had the crazy Mary Wrath wonderfulness that I expect from a Leslie Langtry. I just loved it. It was everything I want my cozy mystery ridiculous series to be. But I did miss some of my characters. So, there you go. The next book that I read was The Gown by Jennifer Robson, and I read this for Krista's Patron Book Club. The Gown centers around the embroiderers that helped make Queen Elizabeth's wedding dress. And I think that's really cool. I found the premise amazing. Just thinking about the people behind the famous people in history, not only Queen Elizabeth, but also this famous designer. Oh my gosh, what is his name? The famous designer that designed it. There was a huge team of people behind this, and really all you hear about is the one guy that designed it, and of course, the one who wore it, because she was Princess Elizabeth, and later Queen. Anne and Miriam are in the London 1947 timeline. It's a really crazy time right after World War II, where rationing is still happening, and there's a lot of negative energy, but also a lot of positive energy with everybody looking forward to the Queen's wedding, and there's a lot of speculation and a lot of craziness happen. So Anne and Miriam are both working for the embroiderer, and they are kind of they're in this place where they need to be very secretive about what they're doing, but they also are really alive and energized by the fact that they're doing it, and it's so great. The other timeline takes place in Canada in 2016, and it follows Heather, who is going through her grandmother's things after she passes away, and finds a piece of embroidery that mimics what was on Queen Elizabeth's dress. And she realizes that her grandmother was part of this dressmaking experience, and she's never talked about it before. So she's just filled with this curiosity as to why that's happening. It is really a fascinating story of friendship and resilience, and I really, really enjoyed it. Miriam is a Holocaust survivor. She was at a concentration camp. There's really quite a few trigger warnings in this. There is a sexual assault within the pages of the book that is very jarring if you don't know it is there, so just use caution. But it is beautifully written and absolutely worth reading. Really, really enjoyed it. The next book that I finished was Otter by Katherine Applegate. This, cuteness overload, okay? So this is about Otter, O-D-D-E-R, who is an otter, O-T-T-E-R, that is very, very, very fascinated with people. When she was very, very young, she was saved by a conservation society and rehabilitated until she was released into the wild. But after she was released, she kept being fascinated with people. And so she kept on getting pushed back out into the wild more so that she wasn't in danger. It's this whole thing. She's so curious that she doesn't worry about all of the dangers that could befall her. Something happens and she needs help again. I learned so much about otter rehabilitation and conservation. It really digs deep into how people affect habitats of sea life and how humans can make up for the fact that they have affected sea life. Affected sea life. Katherine Applegate really did a lot of research about actual otters that were taken in by a rehabilitation center. It really is based on the lives of actual otters, condensed into one otter. And it was so cute, so adorable. I just loved it. Can't wait to get a physical copy to put in my classroom. It's a middle grade. I had it as an ARC through NetGalley. And it is in verse, so it's such a quick, cute read, but told through the point of view of an otter. It's just amazing, and I loved it so, so much. Definitely will make it onto my list of the best of the year. Loved it. The next book that I finished was I'll Be There For You by Kelsey Miller, and this is a nonfiction that looks at the TV show Friends and how it influenced pop culture, America, the world, and really how it helped all of us heal during the attacks of 9/11. It was a lot of fun to get a little in depth into the stories of how the series came along. It was really interesting how to read about the negotiations that the Friends cast went through with the network, with the writers, everything like that. It was really, really interesting. It was a great listen. I listened to a lot of it on my way to Madison to go to the BookTube Bestie meetup, and it was really it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It just filled me with so much nostalgia. And I love Friends. It was fun. It was cool. The next book that I finished was Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I read this with Rainey. And then we watched the pilot movie together, which follows the book quite well. Yeah, there was definitely some cringy, although pretty authentic treatment of Native Americans found within this book. That at one point, Laura witnesses what I assume to be the Trail of Tears, and it was a little difficult to read. I think definitely Little House on the Prairie still has a place within literature. it is still the point of view of someone that was actually alive during the time on the prairie. However, I think that it definitely, through today's eyes, can be a little bit cringy. The next book that I finished was Finlay, Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead by El Casimano, and I loved this book. Finlay is just a great character. I can't, and Finlay and Vero, like, seriously, come on. What a great team. Love them. So great. Finlay's romance. If this starts to feel like Stephanie Plum, I can't. It's not yet. It's not there yet. I loved the mystery. I read reviews and some people were upset by some of the conclusion and it seemed a little cheesy. I thought it was right on brand. I don't know what book they read the first time, but everything about it just felt on brand, really fun, really liked it. There is a group on BookTube doing a read-along of the Finlay Donovan books, and I have already read the first book, so I read the second book now. Oh gosh, am I going to remember all of their channel names? Reading when Neva, Rainy Blue Reads, and Brittany Loves Reading. Those three. They're doing the read-along of the Finlay Donovan books. Very excited to get to hear some discussion about that. The next books that I finished got me caught up in the Whatever After series. I read Good as Gold and Just Dance by Sarah Mlynowski. Good as Gold is a retelling of The Three Bears, and Rumpelstiltskin is thrown in there. It's such a cute fairy tale mashup. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. The character development at this part of the series is just really great. We have an overarching question about Mary Rose, the fairy in the mirror, and her story is developing in such a fun way, and we see it even more in Just Dance. I love these books. Just Dance is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, which that one had this moral dilemma that you don't usually see in the other books, where they're like, we can make it better, but if we make it better, then this person dies. Is somebody like, are we condemning someone to death? Oh my gosh. I just really like this series. Like, seriously, if you need just a really fun, it's so great. It starts with Fairest of All by Sarah Mlynowski, and it's so fun to watch Abby and Jonah, this brother and sister, develop through the series. They have this magic mirror in their basement, and the mirror takes them into fairy tales. They always mess it up in some way, and then they have to fix it before they can go home. It's so cute. So cute. Such a cute series. Love it. I mean, so great. Quick audiobooks. Just wonderful. The next book that I finished was Kittens, Cupcakes, and Complications by Amity Allen. And I did end up liking this. I struggled with it a little bit, and I think I struggled with it because it is a paranormal cozy witch mystery. Paranormal witch cozy mystery. And the paranormal cozies that I like are usually like mediums and somebody that can talk to ghosts, and the ghosts are fun. I love those. But I don't read a lot of paranormal cozy mysteries that have a witch element to it, and it just was, it's a little jarring. But it just felt a little jarring every time. I don't know. Like it's just a little bit of a step outside my comfort zone. So it just took a little bit for me to get into the book. Also, it's the second book in a series. I didn't realize that when I picked up an ngARC from Hidden Gems. And so I kind of felt a little bit like I was being taken out of the narrative, because I kept on thinking, now I wonder if I would have learned that had I read the first book. I wonder if I would have learned that if I had read the first book. Like everything just felt a little bit like I wasn't in the know of what was going on. I could understand everything that was happening with the mystery. It's absolutely fine as a standalone. It's not something that hampered what would have been my enjoyment had I gotten over the fact that it wasn't the first in the series like I thought it was. It's an interesting concept in that Kelsey is the main character, and she inherited a farm from her grandmother, and upon getting the farm from her grandmother, she also finds out that not only was her grandma a witch, but she is also a witch, and she has these powers. At some point in the first book, she accidentally gave magical powers to a litter of kittens. So these little kittens are never going to get older, and they're adorable. Every scene that had kittens in, I could just absolutely picture them, and it was awesome and wonderful, and I loved that. That was so cozy. Absolutely loved it. There's a dog wedding happening here, which I think is just insanely hilarious, and it took this big deep dive. It was interesting. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked the ride. It wasn't the favorite thing that I've ever read in my life, but I really did enjoy it when I sat down and read it. It took me a little bit to get into it just because of that paranormal witch part of it. I really think that somebody that enjoys somebody that enjoys witch cozy mysteries would absolutely love this. Absolutely. Honestly, the more I read, the more I really liked it. And there were so many clues and red herrings, and it was really a fun mystery once I got over that initial this is the second in the series. It all came around, and it was great and a lot of fun, and I would recommend it. I did enjoy it. I do think that I probably will go back and read the first book just to see what I missed, and I am not writing off actually reading the next book as well. So, and then the last book that I finished in the month of September was By the Light of Fireflies by Jenny L. Walsh. This book I got as an ARC from NetGalley. It came out in November of last year. I had a lot of starts and stops with this one. I don't know why, because I really, really liked it once I actually sat down and got into it. I think that I had other things working against me that were stopping me from making progress. I really don't at any point, I really can't think of anything that made me just oh, I don't like this at all. Nothing. It is based on the story of Sybil Ludington during the American Revolution. She mustered her father's militia group when the city of Danbury was under attack by the British, and the validity of whether or not this actually happened is called to question by scholars. I don't know if it's because she's a woman or what. I don't know. Scholars, but it's widely known in that area, and she's known as a female Paul Revere. Now, this is somebody that I've never, ever heard of before, and it's a really fun story that I think needs to be told. She's a young girl who had to ride on a horse and get everybody charged up and ready to go. And I really enjoyed my time with this. I really enjoyed my time with this book once I sat down and decided this is the book that I'm going to read. This is crazy that I haven't read it. And I picked it up for the Buzzwordathon. The prompt was light or dark. So I guess I just didn't feel like I had a reason before. I don't know. Because it was really good and the cover is beautiful and the writing is wonderful and I just really enjoyed it. So the fact that I had lost my access from NetGalley to it and had to go onto Kindle Unlimited in order to get the book so that I could read it is literally very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. So I need to do better. I do fairly okay with my NetGalley, but sometimes I miss stuff, and then I kind of forget about it because I missed it, and that's a problem. That's a problem. I need to stop that. Anyway, those are the 17 books that I read. Really, really enjoyed them. I have my superlative mug. I didn't use this in August. I was so late filming my August wrap up that I just didn't even, whatever. So, all right. So let's see. This says a book that I'm most likely to reread. So honestly, I could see myself reading The Girl in White to one of my classes. I could definitely see myself rereading that. I definitely... Ooh, definitely Otter. I can see myself rereading that as well. Definitely reading it to a class. Or just because I want to, because I love otters, and that was so adorable. Yeah. Honestly, there's not a lot on this list that I would be opposed to rereading. I just have too many books. So let's see. Another one that says most informative. So I could go with the one nonfiction book that I read, and that was I'll Be There For You. That was very, very informative, I must say. However, it was very informative to read The Gown, to see that glimpse into history. Also by the light of Fireflies was very historically accurate. So those were very informative as well. However, I'll Be There For You was absolutely nonfiction. So I would have to say that that's the most informative. So do I want to do one more? I kind of do. I do like these. Let's see. Would work best as a movie. Oh my gosh. Well, Finlay Donovan. I think Finlay Donovan would be a great movie. Or series of movies. Like, I just feel like, man, that movie rocks. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder would also be fairly well as a movie, I would think. I mean, Little House on the Prairie already is a movie. I also would love to see a Whatever After, like, series. I just think that would be so fun. I think kids would love that. It's great. So yeah, but I think Finlay Donovan is going to be my answer to that. Most likely to recommend to my students is Otter. It's definitely Otter. Especially, I have so many animal loving students that would really, really go for Otter. They would love it. Yeah, I would say Otter. There might be a couple of my older students that I think would really enjoy A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And I mean, and Amari, C.S. Lewis, whatever. All of the middle grade books that I read, I would definitely recommend. The YA, I would cautiously recommend to my students. That's all I have for you for today. I would love to hear what book you read in September that would make the best movie. Let me know down in the comments. Also, you can comment on any of the books that I have talked about today. Let me know what you think of them. Did you add any of them to your TBR? Have they been on your TBR for years? Let me know down in the comments. Love to hear from you. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I would love it if you would subscribe. I hope you're finding something wonderful to read. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.